half. It is.
But moving on to our next conversation for the hour now. Before the gavel falls, okay, what is happening during auctions? We're finding out how to survive auctions, where they exist in like the legal frame in our laws, and of course, in which situations are auctions appropriate. If it does come to that, how do you survive it? That's our question. We have an advocate of the High Court in Kenya. That is Anthony Nganga, a fixer as well. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Mariam.
Good to see you.
Pleasure meeting you all. Yes. It's a chilly morning, but the conversations are keeping the country warm.
Tagline.
Like that. Your start. We'll adopt that.
Anthony, you know the drill. We welcome our guest with the day's quote.
Yes.
From Jano Amakots.
Yes.
Jano, take it away.
Amanda Gorman, a well-known poet, she once said, there is power in being robbed and still choosing to dance.
There's power in being robbed and still choosing to dance. I think I agree with the quote. It speaks to the power that we have despite the circumstances around us. So you could be going through a difficult time, but then you choose to still be optimistic and go through it, because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Makes you stronger.
Sometimes.
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 Sometimes what doesn't kill you?
It just kills you.
Whether it's physically, whether it's inside the guy, just kills you.
Sometimes what doesn't kill you will still end up killing you. You know, Anthony, as we're talking, and I've been grabbing the newspaper from Mariam. I'm just looking at always, every day, the back pages of the papers. You will find a full page with advertisements for auctions.
For auction, correct.
Right?
Yes.
Today, it's on page 27 of the Daily Nation.
Yes.
And just a little bit on page 28. But But then there are days when you actually find a number of pages of properties being auctioned. So it's either land, you will find motor vehicles, you will find the houses, you will find different properties under auction. And those are just the ones that find themselves in the papers. In our communities, we only hear mtu alichotwa. That is normal. Aha, we alichotwa.
And sometimes it's very dramatic.
Very, completely dramatic, completely traumatizing, very inhumane. Now, it is all in the name of auction.
Auction.
But is that all auction? Or is some of it criminal?
Now, two things. Remember, auction can emanate from either a debt or a court process. If somebody sued you, won, got a judgment and a decree, they have a legal right to enforce that debt, that judgment debt. And probably today we may focus more on auctions emanating from loans and debts. Now, we have very clear laws and regulations on when and how an auction should happen. And one of the requirements is that there should be an advertisement on a paper with at least on a paper with nationwide circulation. And this is all for a good reason. To avoid a scenario where your property is being auctioned, but you are not even aware. So that requirement protects the owner of the property that is being auctioned. Now, we cannot rule out the possibility of some criminal elements or some abuse of process or some misuse of, the rights that, say, probably auctioneers do have. And on the same point, we can also not rule out some mischief from the owners of the properties. Because we've seen cases where it's a lawful auction, all processes have been followed, a property is about to be sold or is being sold, but then goons from nowhere arrives and it becomes messy. And probably the main focus of our conversation today would be, how do we prevent it from getting to that.
To getting messy.
Exactly.
I don't know whether I'm jumping ahead. You can pull me back if I am, but that's what I wanted to ask, because a lot of borrowers will insist that they are blindsided.
Yeah.
Yet you'll have institutions like banks saying, but we gave notice.
Yes.
So there must be an actual breakdown.
Yes.
Beyond the criminality somewhere. Maybe just kind of explain that.
Thank you very much. So can we start by all agreeing that no borrower goes to the bank to get a loan with the intention of defaulting?
Yeah.
You know?
Most of the times, yes.
Most of the times. Yeah, most of the times.
There
Thank
are
you for that, Raida. So the general rule is that by the time you are going to a bank, probably you have a legitimate and bankable idea.
Yeah.
You do.
At the same point, no bank gives out a loan, or the reasonable expectation is that no bank gives out a loan with the intention of auctioning the borrower. And I can say this without blinking, because I've been in the banking sector. It is usually a painful experience seeing a client that you gave a loan being auctioned. But remember, the bank does not have money for it of its own. It lends your deposit.
Yeah.
And the general rule is that your deposits should be accessible on demand. You know, they also have regulatory requirements from CBK and the Banking Act to ensure that they regulate or they maintain a healthy loan book.
Yeah.
So they have to bring down non-profit NPLs,
Yeah.
you know, non-performing loans, you know. So what that leaves us is that it's a dicey situation. You know, the bank has to protect its integrity, and the borrower also has some legitimate, you know, interest and expectations from that loan relationship. Okay? Now, first things first, and you know, specialists will tell you that most of the loan defaults are from lack of or insufficient or inadequate financial literacy.
Okay.
We have so many other literacies which are very helpful, but then we seem to miss on financial literacy. For example, some of the reasons leading to default include, number one, you took a loan that may not have been the right decision for you or for your business at that point.
Okay.
All right? Because of this, you know, preoccupation that for you to be able to thrive in business, you need capital. So you are getting loans without proper financial literacy and understanding. Or even you got a loan for a very good business idea, but then probably you diverted. You know, the loan, okay? Or sometimes you had a good business or you had a good employment, but your employment comes to an end. Or your business fails to peak as anticipated. So we don't want to blame borrowers. And we also don't want to blame financial institutions. We want to look at the real issue, at the problem, and find out how do we navigate, you know, to ensure that the bank gets back its money and the borrower is able to achieve the objectives that they needed the financing for.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I was going to ask,
Yes.
the procedure, before we even get to a place where we're auctioning,
Yes.
right? Let's start with, is it always in easy to understand language that should I default on this loan and this and this condition is not met, I can be auctioned by this bank or this financial institute? Is it always in, and I make very
black and
careful
white.
to add, in black and white, easy to understand language, or is it sometimes in financial gibberish?
Thank you. A very good question. One of the key messaging, you know, for fixers is that before you sign any loan document, make sure you understand it.
Yes.
All right? If you are finding certain elements difficult to understand, seek interpretation.
Right.
Do you need a lawyer? Do you need a finance specialist to be able to break this down to you?
Right.
All right? Because in the long run, the burden, you cannot go back and say that I was not informed. But again, very important for financial institutions, they have an obligation to make sure that the terms of the facility are in plain language, understandable, and that the borrower does understand. And that is the reason why you are seeing even a majority of, or even most of the digital credit providers are making these disclosures before you get a loan. So the first key messaging is that always make sure that you read and understand loan documents. And where necessary, seek for help.
Okay.
Seek for professional
assistance.
Assistance. Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, how do we then get to auction? Because like even Jenna was saying, that's not where you start.
Yeah.
In most situations, what are the measures that happen before an auction? How many notices? Is there a legal requirement? All of those things. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's a good question. Now, two things. Number one, the process depends on the kind of property that is being auctioned. And I want us to start with the one that is heavy, land and houses, or what is known as real property in legal language. Firstly, and the underlying concept is that there must be a facility, and two, there must be a default on that facility. Please remember that default is not only non-payment, because there usually are many other covenants that have been issued. For example, you could find one of the covenants is that the owner cannot lease that property without the approval of the lender. Okay? So sometimes you find that a borrower may proceed to lease or breach any one of the covenants. So the first notice is the default notice. And what it does is that it tells the borrower that you have breached the terms of our loan agreement by doing this or by failing to do this and that. And it also tells the borrower, these are the steps that you will need to take, okay?
Yep.
For you to remedy or rectify that breach. So that is the starting point. Can I also take this opportunity and say that the borrower, even before you get that notice, you are always aware, or you are expected to be aware that I have defaulted.
Okay.
The tip here is, do not let the lender come to you and remind you that you have defaulted or you have failed in this or that. Be proactive. Be proactive, go to the lender and start engaging them early enough.
Okay.
Because when these conversations start early enough, sometimes it can be salvaged in many ways. You may bring more collateral, your loan may be restructured. In some instances, you can even be given a moratorium.
Okay.
You know, because of on a case-by-case basis. You know, because if you are doing a business, there's flooding, you are not able to continue doing this and that. Sometimes financial institutions will consider and give you a moratorium for a period of time, probably not to pay interest, you know, until this flood stuff has been remedied and all that. So that is the first notice of, that is the default notice. And in land properties, in land, it is usually 90 days. So within 90 days, you have room to be able to fix and amend, you know, the areas that you may have breached. Many people are able to take action at that period, but sometimes due to either, lack of proper attention or communication breakdown, as you said, or sometimes kuna pesa unangoja. Ata umesha deliver, you know, na supplier, I mean, your data amekwambia, in 2 weeks, you'll have the money, you know. So na unasema hata hizo 90 days bank inanipea ni mingi sana. Within 2 weeks I will clear all your debt and you will never see me again, you know. And then things do happen. Yes, things do happen. So it is responsible of every borrower to have these conducive and progressive and very proactive engagements with the lender, you know. In any event, lenders are human. beings as well, you know.
Are
So-
they?
Yes, they
They're
are.
institutions. I don't know.
Yeah.
With human resource, Maria.
With human
Kuna human
So I'm hearing, Anthony, you describing how I could default
Yes.
from repaying a loan.
Yes.
In this contract and in terms and the loan agreement,
Yes, sir.
are there ways in which the bank could default?
Yes, there are instances because the loan agreement is not one-sided. It covers both the lender and the borrower. So there are conditions or there are certain performance metrics
Right.
that are the bank owes the lender, the borrower. The lender owes the borrower. For example, you have agreed that say it's a term of the agreement that for the first 6 months you will not be charged interest.
Yeah.
Just as an example, you know. But then you realize that actually interest was charged within
Those 6 months.
those 6 months.
Yep.
Or disbursement will be made on a certain date or within certain timelines, and the bank has not disbursed the amount. So there is a possibility that the bank could also default, and the borrower has remedies against the bank as well.
Okay.
Okay? And I know we'll get to that point. What options do you have as a borrower? Can we finish on the notices?
Yes.
So that is the first notice. It is 90 days
90
notice.
days. Okay.
From there, in case you do not rectify, you are given another notice of intention to sell. Okay? And this is usually 40 days. Now, within these 40 days, you are required again to remedy that default. In the event that you don't remedy that default, now the matter moves from the lender to the auctioneers, who must be registered and licensed
Okay.
by the auctioneers board. So that's the first control that the law has established. Now, number 2, upon receipt of these instructions, the auctioneer is required first to trace the property, okay, and to issue a 45 days notice that this property, if not redeemed, we are going to sell it via auction.
45 days notice
45 days
to the borrower.
to the borrower, okay?
Directly. Via writing, not
Directly
in publishing
writing,
in paper.
Directly in writing, and it must be served to the borrower himself or herself. And in circumstances where you are not able to find them, of course, they have a last known address. You are required to leave that notice to an adult in that household.
Okay.
So where's your chia notice watoi alafu useme. So sometimes those are the grounds that sometimes we are able to use.
Nilipea junior hapo kwa mlango.
And all this
So
time
the
there's no
legal service-
publishing, yeah?
Not yet.
Okay.
We are not there yet. So in the event that after the 45 days you still have not remedied, now the advertisement is issued for the sale. So what you are seeing on the papers is advertisement. Presumably, it has gone through all the other steps until it gets
here.
to the point where the property is being auctioned.
So by this time, we have had the 90 days notice of default.
Yes.
A further 40 days notice of intention to sell.
Yes.
And a further 45 days notice from the auctioneers.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. From
is more
45, now
how
we
many
have
months
now
now?
the 14
We're,
days.
we're at 6 months already of this process.
Yeah, 90 days,
45.
40 days,
85.
and 45,
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
Actually more.
Yeah.
More than,
So 6 months into it.
Yes.
Now there'll be an advertisement in the paper.
Yes.
That's saying this is an intention to auction.
To auction.
This
And
property.
This is what, yes. So what do you do when you are served by
Right.
this, or when you realize, depending on the level at which, but ideally, and the first thing that fixers will need to take seriously is the very first notice. Let's take it.
The 90 days.
It's more serious. And sometimes even before the 90 days notice,
Yeah.
there is a demand of 30 days. You know? Now, let's take them seriously and start taking proactive actions. You know, what options? Yes.
No,
yes,
sorry, we're just going into a break.
Okay.
I'm the person who every time pointing naiva. But
In
if it's
between.
like, say it as it is, you're interrupting.
In between my interviews.
I know.
Around.
Pole sana. We do
okay.
have to take
No
a break.
worries, no worries.
Anthony Nganga is an advocate. He's talking to us about auctioning and auctioneering and at what point does it get there. I wonder when you can issue an injunction to be like, no. You'll answer that when we come back. It is coming up to 8:30. We'll return with that conversation in just a moment.
Hi guys, my name is King George. I'm part of the duo of the Georges family. And today I am fixing the nation by ensuring that I go to class and teach. And not only teach, but instill values so that in the next 10, 15 years, we have young people in this generation, in this nation of ours, that understand that leadership comes with sacrifice. Some of the problems we're experiencing today is because the teachers in the education system then never instilled any form of values whatsoever. Selflessness and the selfishness going on in our country.
King George, very, very, very good What's Up Nation right there. And you know what? You were straight to the point and you're absolutely right. Some of us go through several decades of education, but ethics, leadership skills, ISO, soft skills, nothing. So it's an important job that you're doing as a fixer there to make sure that you're teaching, but not just teaching what's on paper and what's in the book, but also making sure that there's some values, some leadership skills, something intangible that will prepare your learners for the world. Thank you for that What's Up Nation video. Send yours to 0769 590 762. 0769 590 762. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you're doing to fix the nation, and we'll be more than happy to share yours, Kesho. I'll see you.
Absolutely. Just before we get back to the conversation, Wakayana Lawrence is saying, put God first, everything will be fine. Kwa hiyo mambo ya auctions, just weomba, please. But then, Sherman HQ is asking a question. To what extent is a bank obligated to obtain a current and fair market valuation before exercising its statutory power of sale, and what remedies are available to a borrower if the property is undervalued? It's a good question.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's another one here by Muko Waere who says, good morning, kindly inform me on the purpose of the insurance that one takes on a loan. When one fully pays the loan, why is it not refunded? Can it be used as security?
Kindly, sorry, repeat?
Yeah, the purpose of insurance that one takes on a loan. When one fully pays the loan, why is that insurance
Not refunded.
not refunded?
Well, I mean, I feel like that's the whole scam of the insurance industry. You know, you could go the whole year without even scratching the vehicle, but no one will refund you. You don't go to the hospital the whole year, no one will refund you. It's just, it's insurance. But anyway, Wakili will probably have a better answer. And on the question of, as well, the fact that sometimes you may be undervaluing the property, there's also the question of exactly what are we auctioning, yeah? Nilikuwa nimelipa 850,000 of my 1 million shilling loan. Now you're auctioning.
Then you need 200,000.
Then you're back 200,000.
And the property is 1.5 million.
Exactly. What now?
Fantastic. So those are very good questions, and it usually gives us some good joy to see that we are having real conversations with fellow fixers.
Yes.
I'll answer the question on valuation when we get to the segment where what is the checklist that an auctioneer must ensure this has been done, this is available before the auction.
Okay.
And the other question was on insurance. Now, you see, different loan products are engineered differently. But my understanding, the insurance that could be that the fixer could be asking about is life insurance. Okay? Because remember, if you pass away, the bank cannot go after your people to ask them to pay, and they have to mitigate that risk. Remember, you take a loan 5 years, 10 years, a mortgage 20 years. Anything can happen in between. So it becomes it became important to protect your family from being followed by a bank to have this life insurance. So that if you pass away, the insurance will pay. Okay?
Clears your loan.
Clears your loan, yes. But it's not every loan facility that has this kind of an insurance cover, you know? And those are nitty-gritties, but those are the exemptions.
Okay.
The general rule in most loan arrangements, there will be that insurance, life insurance. Now, if you don't, if you make through and you pay your loan, there isn't anything to claim from the insurance.
Yeah.
Because the risk that you are insured against did not attach.
Yeah.
You know? And that ideally is a concept of insurance.
Yeah.
That I'm afraid I might, you know, a certain risk might attach. So to cover myself, I take out insurance. If it doesn't happen, well and good. If it happens, insurance takes care of that.
Yeah.
You know? So that is the short and clear answer
on the insurance
insurance
and why it's not repaid.
Yes, yes.
Makes sense.
Now, there are some progressive financial institutions that have included other protective options. For example, there are accounts or even loans that when you take these loans, there will be a small premium, but then if you lose your job, you know, if you are retrenched and it was pegged on your salary, then either you are given, say, a year to find back a job, and then you come back and pay, and you will not be charged any interest during this period. So those are some of the mitigating measures that some financial institutions are availing to borrowers, to just try and protect them from the shocks of financial difficulties. Because truth be told, in most circumstances where there is a default, there usually is an underlying financial distress.
Yeah.
You know, you had a business, it's not there anymore. You are employed, you are not employed.
No longer income.
You're not employed anymore. So that is usually the underlying reason. So we were looking at the notices.
Yes.
And we said that fixers must always take these notices very seriously.
Yeah.
Okay? And even before you get the notice, be proactive.
You're the one, you know you're in default.
You know you are in default. And there are many other options that you can consider. Do you have other properties that you can let go and be able to bail yourself on this particular one that is
Attached
used
as collateral. Yeah.
Do you start engaging people who would buy the property and tell the bank, you know, I've found Eric who is willing to buy my property. This is the amount that he's giving, and I want the money to be paid through this account so that you deduct all that I owe you, and then I get the balance. That's called sale by private treaty. What that does is that it gives you a better market value, because you see you are selling it at its value.
Yes.
It's your auction. So that is one of the options that you do have, from proactive renegotiation and all that. The other option you have, a borrower has, is private sale by private treaty. You find a buyer yourself.
Yeah.
The other option that you have is you can substitute security, you know? But sometimes when you are in default, those conversations about substituting security and all that may not be very welcome.
Okay.
Because the relationship is already
sour.
You know? But then if you have used your home as the collateral, and you know that if this was to be auctioned, I don't know what would happen to my family. But you have another property somewhere else. And this property is sufficient collateral.
Yeah.
You know? You can actually engage your lender and say, okay, I agree that I am in default. And although I'm doing the best that I can to be able to rectify this, I would like to switch this collateral. You know? If you do it early enough, maybe when the default is not badly off, you can save your home, for example. The next thing that you can also do is the other option that you have is to liquidate some of your assets, and be able to repay this loan. The other thing that you would do is to seek alternative. The other option is to seek alternative financing. Okay? Especially one that gives your cash flow a breather, because it's usually a cash flow problem. The money that you're getting is not enough to cater for your overheads and still pay the loan, But if you can be able to get an alternative lender who will give you maybe a loan, the same loan, or a loan enough to, release this pressure and then give you a longer period so that the installments are also going low. But the risk in that is that the longer the loan repayment period, the higher the interest. But sometimes the only thing that a borrower needs is that breather. And you cool off that pressure, and then they can be able to think on their feet. Because even you, Mariam, when you're coming to fixing the nation, and there is an auctioneer notice that is hanging on your back.
Can't function.
So that's the point. That's the point, and so that's the other option that they have. And the earlier,
the better.
What's the latest you can exercise any of these options?
Throughout the auction process, throughout the whole default and auction process, before the hammer falls.
Okay. When does the hammer
But then, remember, if you're coming in too late, the conversation becomes difficult.
More difficult.
It becomes difficult. And again, as fixers, we must invest in financial literacy heavily. As much as we invest for our masters and PhDs, we must invest in financial literacy. Because some of the mistakes that we do can be corrected, early enough.
Okay.
So we've looked at the notices. Can we now look at the auction process?
Yes.
Say the auction date has been fixed. It's on Friday this week.
So let's say this. The auctioneer, upon receiving instructions from the lender, has given me the 45 days notice. So what's happening in these 45 days? These 45 days notice are for what? Lipa ama tuuze.
Like your last for real lipa.
Hii ni ile ya mwisho. It's last chance. That's a 45 days notice.
The 45 days notice. After the 45, that's called the redemption notice.
Redemption notice.
You can redeem your property. Okay? Now, if you still do not comply with the 45 days notice, then advertisement comes. And it's about we will be selling your property on this date. One very important legal option that borrowers will need to know is that you are entitled, to be there and to even bid for the same property.
Just wait.
As a borrower, you can attend the auction and even bid for the same property.
Sadistic, but okay.
That's a lower price.
You are entitled. Okay. You are entitled. It's a legal right.
I think it's a nice
that
thing.
you have.
I guess there is a chance that you can still
redeem.
Okay. I don't know where you'd be getting the money from, but
but anything can happen.
Exactly.
Anything can happen. Hata last night tunaweza ambia Eric property yangu inaenda. Eric akwambie basi I will be in the bank and I can buy it, or maybe I can bail you out. So it's possible.
Okay.
Remember, even at 11th minute, miracles zinaweza happen. But tusingoje 11th
hour.
Don't push it.
So the date has been set. Sorry, General.
No, it's okay.
The date has been set. That's the date of the auction. And you're saying that I have a right. Is it as a right?
Yes, it's a right.
I have a right to participate in the auction. To be present.
And to bid
during the auction
for the property.
Okay.
You also have another right. Before the auction. If there is any step that either the lender or the auctioneers have not followed or have not done properly, you can actually go to court and get an injunction. Okay? Please note that the injunction may give you a temporary relief, you know, but it will not write off the debt. It can extend the period, you know, and maybe you run around courts for 1 more month, 1 more year, you know, 2 more years, you know. But remember, deni bado iko. You know? Because there are sometimes... Because sometimes...
Yeah.
Sometimes borrowers may be under an illusion that by engaging the bank or the lender in some sort of delay tactics, you know, somehow, and hope that the debt will go away.
Will miraculously disappear.
It will not go away.
Yeah.
So even as
court order haijalipa deni.
You get? Yeah, it will give you the relief.
Which is
and it will
sometimes,
protect you from violation of your rights.
But can the injunction also be denied?
Yes, it can be denied.
Okay, so...
But now, by the time it's being denied, remember when you are going to court, you bring all manner of, you know, evidence and information, and sometimes the court may give you ex parte orders saying, okay, before we hear you completely and even hear the bank, can we at least stop the auction?
Yeah.
You know? Now see, it has given you some reprieve, but it's only short-lived.
Yeah.
It's a good option. It protects your rights because sometimes your rights are outrightly violated. So, okay? Remember also, this right to approach the court is not limited to before the auction. If the process is completed, okay, and the auction has been done, you still can challenge the process.
Okay.
And we have seen cases where auctions have been invalidated. Yes.
On what kinds of grounds?
There are grounds like these notices. Okay? There are grounds that the charge was not properly done. Sometimes you charged matrimonial property. The spouse was not informed. The spouse did not give spousal consent. You know? Sometimes these notices were not served properly.
Right.
Sometimes first sale valuation was not done.
Okay.
You know? Or sometimes the property was sold below the first sale value. You know, without proper kind of a justification. So it's possible and it happens. All right? Just to protect the borrower and the integrity of the process.
Yeah. Some people say that auctioneers there's a perception rather that they act with impunity. Who regulates them?
Yeah, the auctioneers board. There is an auctioneers board, and there are very clear regulations that stipulate before you take this step, these are the things that you must have done. All right? And the general or the legal expectations on each and every auctioneer is that by the time they are auctioning a property, that they have complied not only with the letter, with the letter of the law, also with the spirit and the intention behind that kind of regulation. And we encourage fixers. You know, when you realize that some of the actions taken either by the lender or even by the auctioneers is not proper, there is a board that deals with that. You can also talk to your legal representative to be able to look into it and see how you can be protected.
How many auctioneers are registered under that board? Do you happen to have an inkling? Because again, what you see is auctioneers that are borderline violent, acting almost like loan sharks coming to, you know, get their property back. And it's very impromptu. It seems impromptu. We don't know if, again, the process was followed. It seems it's violent for sure, and aggressive, that part is. Is there also like an ethics bit to the auctioneering process? Because coming at night, for example, you know, displacing, kuna vitu zingine zinakanga tu.
So there are regulations. Number one, auction process should not happen outside
working hours.
Not outside working hours.
Okay.
After 6.
Okay.
You know, there are also some assets or some properties that cannot be seized. You know?
Like what?
And probably like a bed.
Oh.
You cannot seize a bed.
Oh.
Yes. Always use a bed. After his auction, ukiangalia, you'll never find a bed there. Those beddings.
Bed na
Those
kila
beddings
kitu.
as an example. Yeah.
Maulizia mattress. Because if it's from, there's some mattresses that cost.
Bed ikienda unaweza baki na mattress. I think that is what Eric is saying.
So they can't touch the beddings.
They can't touch beddings, you know. And maybe what I would say, you can one day call the board or a representative from the auctioneers
we'll do that.
to tell you what are the standards and what are the expectations. That will be very important for our fixers because we see so many violations. And by the time you are coming in as a lawyer, even by the time you are taking the matter and going to court, there is some damage that has already been done.
Yep.
Kids were traumatized, you know, properties were destroyed. Borrowers are, you know, sometimes they come crying, you know. They are in a state that you cease being a lawyer, you become a counselor and a comforter.
But are these people auctioneers? Because I thought auction is where we are saying that we are going to sell this property to recover the money.
Yes,
does auction also mean we are coming to destroy the house?
No, we don't. But you remember sometimes, sometimes either borrowers have denied access, so they have gone to the court and they got breaking orders.
So
because remember,
so they're coming to take possession so that they can sell it.
There are two types of borrowers or owners. There are also some who are like, you know, the rogue.
Rogue borrower.
So what they are doing is that they are doing all that they can to stop you from
collecting.
You understand? So by saying that there is protection, we mean by a law-abiding borrower who agrees, okay, I took 10 million.
Yeah.
I have not been able to pay it entirely. You know, and this is the process. I've also not been able to renegotiate and all that. So let them come, let them auction, then I can start life again. Some don't. And there are even some sad situations where a purchaser goes through the entire process and they buy a property and they are shown, this is your plot, the plot that you bought by auction. They have a title deed, but they cannot use that land.
Because
they are goons.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are goons and there is a lot of hostility. So what do? You have a property, you paid for it,
but you can't access it. You can't.
And the guy who had borrowed does not want to pay.
Of course,
you see, you can agree. Okay, if you don't want me to take the property, give me this much.
Fair value.
Hataki kukulipa na
hataki
kutumie shamba yenye umelipia.
So you just
see, it becomes difficult.
At a stalemate.
So this protection does not extend to any person, whether an auctioneer or a borrower who violates the law. You understand?
That's fair.
If you are not following the law, you don't have any protection at all.
Okay. There's the question of now the valuation of these properties. Like that, the example given, borrowed $1 million, paid 850,000, have attached collateral worth 1.5 million shillings. Now, when the auctioneer comes, what is the minimum they can sell this property for?
Fantastic question. That's a good question.
And balance inakuja kwangu.
That is a good question. We also look at how
shortfall.
How do you shortfall? So we'll come to how do you apply the proceeds of an auction.
Yeah.
But before we get there, Mariam, let's ask ourselves, what are the critical requirements that must be present for an auction to be lawful?
Okay.
The first one is that there must have been a debt or a certain obligation.
Right.
Number two, there must have been a default on that obligation. And we said that we are focusing more on auction emanating from loans.
Right.
There's another process that we said about legal litigation
suits
and all
and
that.
things. Okay.
We can put that aside for now. Now, there was a default. There were notices, proper notices, you know, that were given by the lender and also by the auctioneer. All right? Now, there were advertisements that were done. And 5, there was a forced sale valuation that says, by the time you are taking this loan, this property was valued at 5 million. It's now 5 years later.
Okay.
The property is valued at 7 million. Okay? What does the law say about the minimum that you can sell this property for? you cannot sell it for any amount below 75%. So if the market value, there are three values in valuation. One is open market value, two is the first sale value, and three is the insurance value. Okay? So if the open market value is $1 million, the minimum that you can sell this property at is 750,000.
Okay.
It can only be, you cannot sell it below 75%.
Okay.
If it is sold below that, that is a ground to invalidate the auction.
Okay.
All right? Now, are there circumstances that it can be sold at a lower value, at a lower price? Yes, there are.
Okay.
But you must justify that you attempted to reasonably acceptable levels, that you attempted to sell it at the first market value, but you could not fetch any borrower.
Okay.
Any purchaser.
Okay.
You must be able to demonstrate that. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and all that.
Okay.
You must demonstrate the difficulties.
Okay.
And there are exceptional circumstances where the courts have accepted sale of a property below the first sale value.
Okay.
There must be those extraneous
Circumstances. Okay. Just because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Let's do that again. The loan was 1,850,000 has been paid.
Yeah.
But the collateral attached is worth 1.5
Okay.
million. So let's even say the bank manages to sell it, the auctioneers managed to sell it at $1 million shillings.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's again another good question. How is this money applied?
Yes.
First thing is it goes to pay for auctioneer's fees. Okay?
And your first charge.
Yes.
Okay.
And other lawful expenses. Remember, there could be other
Property
lawful-
tax, I don't know,
yes, and all
something.
that. Number 2, it pays the debt. Okay? Then it pays any other lawful expenses, like say you advertised, you did valuation, and all that. After paying all the lawful expenses, all right, then the balance should be remitted to the borrower. Okay? If you had taken $1 million, you paid 850, the balance was 250, and the property is sold at $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay? You net the outstanding loan balance, these other lawful expenses, and taxes were applicable, then the balance should be paid to the borrower, back to the borrower.
So assuming it's sold for $1 million, you had an outstanding balance of, like
200,000.
200,000, okay? So
Auctioneer and all these other fees maybe come to 300,000 or another 200,000. So that is 400,000.
400, okay.
So you get back your 600,000.
okay.
And that is why probably as the parting shot, we said that you are entitled to participate in the bid and purchase. Remember, you can go back and purchase the property valued at 1.5 million at 1 million.
You can.
So that's why it's important for you to focus on that right. Yeah.
We're out of time, but this deserves a part 2 and even another one with the auctioneers board, just to understand, their procedures and how lawful they are and what their regulation for the sector looks like. But thank you so much, Wakili. It's been a good one. Yes. We'll continue threading these conversations. It's been Anthony Nganga, advocate of the High Court of Kenya, walking us through how to essentially survive auctions in a season that is tough for so many businesses and individuals. Asante sana, Anthony.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Tupatane in the next hour where we're saying, just miss me with that. Nyimko kadi. Miss me with that. I'll tell you who I'm talking about. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation and TV.